Why, howdy, folks. Welcome back. I'm going to do an in-depth on how to make your own guard out of copper for a knife, and we're going to solder it on. So we're starting with 1/2 inch round bar, solid copper. Copper, if you haven't forged it before, is really easy. It's really soft. And I'm forging a point on the end and making it to where it's probably around 5/16 of an inch thick. We're leaving it a little thicker than the final guard should be. Now I like to use this hot cut hardy to cut it off, just so I don't have to put it in the vise and use a saw and such. But we are going to still have to put it in the vise anyway, because it does leave a slight ragged edge. So we're just going to use a file, clean that off so it doesn't create any weird little cold shuts. Now here's a pro tip. I like to forge two at the same time. So on the opposite end, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a point on it. That way I can cut this guard in half, and then I have two guards for the time of one, essentially. And like I said, everything's a little bit thicker and bigger than you ultimately want it to be, because we are going to refine it. So with copper, to anneal it, which is very helpful, it softens it. You're going to heat it up to where it's glowing and cool it in water. It's the opposite of steel for some reason. And this is going to make doing some of our refining very helpful. So I use this rolling mill. You don't have to use this, but it's what I like. This gets everything a nice, consistent, even thickness. Takes out all the low spots. Makes it to where it takes less time to sand. And then I'll use a hacksaw to trim the guards to the correct length. That completely just depends upon the knife you're making. But I don't really have power in my shop. Well, I don't have power in my shop. I have to bring in power if I need it. So most of this, pretty much all of this actually is done with just hand tools. And this is the only power tool, which is a cordless drill. So you'll mark out the width and the height of your tang. You'll drill 2 holes in the appropriate spots. And then I use this jeweler's saw. And what this is going to do is this is going to basically cut out all the material in between those 2 holes. So we have a slot for our tang to go into, just like that. Now, if you do this precisely, which hopefully you do, then you don't really have to do any filing. So I'll now just hammer the guard into place, make sure it's a nice tight fit. Even though we're going to solder this on, the tighter the fit, the better. The less gaps we have to fill with the solder, the happier you're going to be, I promise. So here we are. Soldering is a hard thing to do, and hopefully this helps if you're looking how to do this. But we have a guard press, which is right above the vise. That's pressing on this base plate, which is pressing on the guard. And what I'm doing is I'm heating up the base plate, I'm heating up the tang, and I'm heating up the guard nice and slowly to around 400 degrees, which is where the solder melts. And the slower and more even the heat you get, the more success you're going to have. If the solder isn't working, if it's globbing up, it means one of your parts isn't hot enough. So I'm not really worried about overheating the knife. Unless you're really careless, you don't really have to worry about that. Now I like to use, it's called Stay Clean Flux, and I put it in a syringe so it doesn't make a big mess. And you can see it bubbling. That's cleaning the soldering surfaces so that the solder can stick really well. Once you apply a little flux, now we're going to just slowly keep heating all the parts until that wire starts melting and we can melt it into the joint, which is going to create a perfect seal. And that's the reason why you do something like this. This is to keep water or anything else from getting into the tang slot. It permanently affixes the guard. In my opinion, this is far stronger than any sort of adhesive would be for this. And not a lot of people do soldering because it's hard. I fully admit that, and I've taken a lot of time to try and get good at this. But I really like the way it looks. I like the permanence of it, and I like that it is one of the things that makes my knives unique and showcases the skill involved in making it. So you can see that wire really melting into that joint. That's exactly what we want. We want basically it to be the lowest temperature possible to melt the wire, so we're not worried about overheating something. Once you get enough of the wire melted into the joint, this little flux brush just kind of cleans everything up. If you have like a thicker spot of solder, you can brush it a little thinner. if there's a little bubble or a gap, you can use the brush to kind of smooth it out. It's very helpful. And if you do this well and clean and aren't crazy with your solder, this should only take 2 or 3 minutes to clean up with some sandpaper. And that's mostly just to get some of the excess solder off the face of the guard so it doesn't look as silver. And there we go. That's, with no cleanup, how it looks. You can see we got good penetration. You can see our joint looks really nice and clean, no bubbles. Hope that helped, y'all. Thanks for watching.